I hadn't parked in that lot in months, but I still pulled into the same space I always used, far back, away from the entrance. Habit, I guess. Old habits don't die quietly. I sat for a minute, watching the morning traffic drift by on the street behind me. I had a strategy meeting to attend, or at least that's what the email said. Monday, 10 a.m., boardroom 3. Bring your updates. I brought them, polished and color-coded. 7 years' worth of effort crammed into 6 pages. The building looked exactly the same. Gray brick, a faded blue logo painted near the roofline. I helped pay for that logo refresh, helped install the HVAC system when the budget was tight, and Seraphine didn't want to sweat in her office. Every corner of this place had a fingerprint of mine on it. Inside, the new receptionist barely looked up. "They're in the back," she said. "Your sister already started." There was a pause, too short to be an accident, too long to be polite. I nodded, thanked her, and made my way to the boardroom, wondering why it suddenly felt like I was showing up late to a party I wasn't invited to. The door was already open. Seraphine stood at the end of the table, next to Mom, pointing at a projection of market forecasts. She looked polished, rehearsed. There were 2 cups of coffee on the table, but neither had my name on them. Mom didn't look up as I entered. Instead, she uncapped a pen, a red pen, and signed the last page of a document. I recognized the pen before I recognized the paper. It was the one I gave her on Mother's Day, 5 years ago. I had it engraved, "For the woman who taught me to lead." I didn't realize then she'd use it to sign me out of the company I helped keep alive. Seraphine handed me an envelope without looking at me. "This is no longer your concern," she said. I didn't speak right away. My hands felt cold. There wasn't yelling, no dramatic music playing in my head. Just the dull thud of everything making sudden, bitter sense. I looked at Mom. She was watching the projector like it had answers. "Why now?" I asked, quietly. Mom finally turned to me. Her voice was level, even soft. "Because you need to go get married. You've done enough. Get married." As if marriage were an off-ramp for inconvenient daughters. Seraphine was still flipping through slides like nothing had happened. I wondered if she'd practiced this moment, if they'd timed it just right, like the way you rehearse a toast or a eulogy. I thought about the times I covered payroll from my own savings, the grad school deferment letter still sitting in my drawer, the engagement I broke off because the business needed me. I remembered the night Mom had chest pains, and I drove her to the ER, laptop on my knees, processing invoices while she slept in triage. This wasn't sudden. This was orchestrated. I sat down, unsealed the envelope. Inside was a check. The memo line read, "Transitional appreciation, 7 years, reduced to 2 words and a signature I paid to engrave." I looked at Mom. "After all this time, this is how it ends?" "You're smart," she said. "You'll land on your feet. It's time to focus on your personal life." I stood, straightened the hem of my blazer. I didn't slam the door, didn't ask for explanations or plead for fairness. I didn't even say goodbye. I just walked out, my heels silent on the polished floor I helped choose 7 years ago. They never saw me, only what I could do for them. 2 weeks after the boardroom, I got a message from Greg. He works legal, quiet guy, detail-oriented, the kind who reads NDAs for fun. The subject line just said, "Thought you should see this." Attached was the updated company structure for Crow Logistics. My name wasn't on it, not in small print, not in an asterisk, not anywhere. It was like I'd never existed. I opened my old contracts, the ones I had initialed, signed, scanned, archived. Every document where I held equity or decision-making power, gone. Not edited, deleted. I went line by line through every folder I had access to. They were pristine, as if someone had cleaned house and locked the door behind them. I called Jim, the family's legal counsel. He'd known me since I was 15, called me kiddo, even into my 30s. This time, he was all business. "I'm sorry, Perry," he said, avoiding my name entirely after the apology. "I can't get involved in family matters. It's not professional. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. But I sat still for a long time after the call ended. I thought back to drafting the original agreements with my dad, me writing clauses by hand on a yellow notepad while he recovered in the hospital. I was 29. I hadn't slept in 2 days. I drank flat coffee while I figured out how to save our supply chain contracts, and now they'd scrubbed me clean from every record. When the envelope arrived, I already knew what it was. It was glossy, thick cardstock, trimmed in gold. The kind of thing you send when you want to feel like you're honoring someone while you're quietly exiling them. You are cordially invited to the 25th anniversary of Crow Logistics. Underneath, we'd love to honor your past involvement. Past. I turned the card over. Seraphine was listed as president and visionary co-founder. That night, I drove to the event venue. I didn't go in. I just walked the perimeter, back entrance, loading dock, empty stage area still being set up. I traced the edges of the building like I was walking the borders of something I used to own. Nobody noticed me. No one even asked what I was doing. I stood where the podium would go and remembered the first employee meeting I ran when COVID hit. Seraphine was on sabbatical then, somewhere in Santa Barbara with her wellness coach. I was here in the same room taping arrows to the floor and handing out masks. They say memory fades with time. I think some memories get sharper. A few nights later, I went to the office. I still had my badge. The system hadn't revoked it yet, which felt like an oversight more than mercy. The walls were redone. The entry hallway had a new photo collage. Not one included me. In the main conference room, all the framed awards had Seraphine's name in bold. In the brochure stand near reception, I found the new timeline, founded by Seraphine Crow and guided by the wisdom of matriarch Isolde Crow. No mention of me, no footnote. Not even a shared byline. I wasn't furious. I didn't pace or curse. I just went quiet. I could hear my dad in my head, one of those voicemails I saved and replayed more times than I'll admit. He once joked, "This whole thing would fall apart without your spreadsheets." He said it half laughing, but I remember how he looked at me when he did, like he meant it. That night I didn't sleep. I walked from room to room in my apartment until the sky started to lighten. I thought of all the dinners I skipped, birthdays I didn't celebrate, the relationships I let fall apart, all so the company would stay afloat. And now they were calling it her vision and Mom's wisdom. No one mentioned the girl who kept the lights on. On the night of the event, I got dressed anyway. Not because I planned to go in, just because I wanted to see myself in something I bought with my own paycheck from that company. I stood across the street from the hotel, invitation in my hand. A valet came out, glanced at me, and said, "Set up crews around the back." I didn't correct him. I folded the invitation in half, pressed it flat, and left it on the nearest bench. I turned around and walked into the dark. They had erased me while I was still standing in the room. But if they wouldn't give me a page in the story, I'd write my own damn book. As I walked back toward my car, I pulled out my phone and opened a new email. To Evanthy Gray, subject, one version you haven't heard yet. 3 days before the anniversary, I got a text from one of the old warehouse guys, Mark. He was never close to me, but he had a good gut for what was fair and what stank. His message was simple. "Thought you should see this." There was a link. I clicked. It was the tribute video, the one they'd show at the gala. 7 years of my life, and not 1 second of me, not a clip, not a name, not even a photo buried in a group shot. They used footage from meetings I led, but cut to wide angles, blurring me into the background. Voiceovers praised steady leadership, and every compliment had a new face attached to it. My voice? Gone. My hands? Cropped out. My name? Never spoken. I didn't feel anger right away. First came that strange stillness, the one you get in a hospital hallway, waiting for news you already know. Then came the realization, this wasn't oversight. It wasn't someone forgetting to credit me. This was on purpose. I opened my phone and pulled up an old photo from the early days. It was a town hall meeting I ran during the worst of COVID. I remembered the sweat on my back from running the projector and answering employee questions for 2 hours straight. I remembered taping floor markers with my own hands when we couldn't afford to outsource. In that photo, I was front and center. In the video version, the angle cut me out entirely. History doesn't erase you by accident, I said out loud to no one. It does so when you've become inconvenient. 2 days later, I stopped by headquarters under the guise of grabbing personal items I'd left behind. HR had approved the visit, said someone would escort me. It was Clarence. He used to bring me donuts when I worked weekends. Now he greeted me like a stranger. He led me down a hallway that smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. "We've redone some things," he said nervously. In a small side room, I saw racks of newly printed uniforms. Branded polos, jackets, name tags. I walked over and scanned the table, my size, my old title, no name tag. Clarence tried to smile. "Maybe yours is still being printed." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I designed those uniforms. During the second year of the pandemic, when morale was flatlining and everyone felt replaceable, I came up with the idea. Custom name tags, comfort fit shirts, little touches that made the staff feel human again. Now those same ideas were being handed out, just not to me. That night, I requested access to internal HR records. Nothing official, just for personal compliance review, I wrote. The response came an hour later. Access denied. Request deemed unnecessary. Back home, I sat on my floor surrounded by binders, USBs, cloud drive passwords. I pulled out an old team brochure from 2 years back and compared it to the new video timeline. Entire milestones were gone, entire quarters erased, the shifts I covered, the months I ran operations solo, deleted. "You can only delete me if I stay silent," I whispered. I texted Lysander Vale. He was our old creative director before he jumped ship 6 months ago. I didn't expect much, just needed to feel like I wasn't losing my mind. His reply came 20 minutes later. "You might want to ask why the original footage vault was wiped last March." No explanation, no follow-up, just that. I opened a new folder on my desktop and titled it, "The Version They Forgot." Then I started gathering old receipts, planning decks, strategy memos, team emails, payroll docs, anything with a timestamp that showed I had been there. Not out of revenge, just survival. By the time the clock hit midnight, I had 2 folders full, one labeled facts, one labeled their version. The next night, I poured a glass of wine, turned off my phone, and watched the tribute video again. This time, I counted. Seraphine's name was mentioned 19 times. Mine, 0. I closed the laptop, walked over to the bookshelf, pulled out my old journal, the one I hadn't touched since I resigned myself to silence. There was a line I wrote during the worst winter the company had. We were about to lose our biggest client. Half the team was sick. No one wanted to lead. The line read, "I'd rather be invisible than a puppet." I ran my finger under that sentence. Then I whispered, "But I've been both." I picked up the red pen, the one I gave Mom, the one she used to sign me out. I didn't throw it, didn't break it. I clicked it open and started writing, not to change their story, but to write mine. I woke up that morning expecting nothing, not flowers, not a call, maybe an email from my dad's old inbox if I wanted to be sentimental. Instead, I found something else. No subject line, no greeting, just a cold message from HR. "Effective immediately, your role as Director of Operations is concluded." Attached was a PDF titled Transition Notice. That was it. I stared at the screen for a long time, not blinking, not breathing too deep. They waited until today, my birthday. I clicked open the file, read the lines like I was reading someone else's obituary. Then I saved it, renamed it on my desktop. Closure. No tears. Not one. Just a tight feeling behind my eyes that I chose not to chase. Instead, I went and made coffee, sat on the edge of the counter while it brewed. I thought back to my 30th birthday. That night I stayed late, fixing a payroll glitch that almost shut us down. No one thanked me. They didn't even know. That night, Mom texted, "Good work." That was all. By early afternoon, I needed to get out of the apartment, so I walked to the corner coffee shop. It used to be our vendor meeting spot, neutral ground, cheap coffee, no egos. As I ordered, I heard someone say my name. It was Jeff. He ran printing for our product packaging years ago. "Perry," he said, smiling. "Heard you stepped down. Thought you were off finding yourself in Europe or something." I blinked. "Stepped down?" He laughed. "Yeah, Seraphine said you were taking time to breathe. Sabbatical or something like that." I smiled, but it wasn't real. Something like that. On the walk home, I opened the company's official page. There it was, a farewell post, curated and polished. "We thank Perry Crow for her years of service. She's moved on to exciting new horizons." Exciting new horizons. I read it 3 times, blocked the page, closed the app. Back home, I sat on the couch with a slice of cake I'd bought myself the day before. I hadn't even bothered to light the candle. It was just me, in a sweatshirt, fork in hand, phone silent. I stared at the plate like it owed me an explanation. At 25, I skipped my own birthday to close a logistics contract that saved the company over $100,000. Mom's text that year: "You did good. Nothing more." Today, there wasn't even that. Not from Seraphine, not from Mom, not even a lie. I picked up my phone, opened the calendar, and deleted the reminder. B-Day dinner, with Mom, tentative. I laughed to myself, one of those sharp little sounds that has no humor in it. "Even funerals come with more kindness," I muttered. After rinsing my plate, I moved to my desk, cleared off the clutter, opened a fresh document. Title: Version 1, What They Never Told You About Crow Logistics. First line: "This is not a resignation." And I meant it. I started gathering what I had. The screenshots of project timelines, emails with my name removed, leadership slides with reworded quotes that I originally wrote, payroll ledgers with my signature, now attributed to someone else, receipts. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for truth. Truth never ages. It just waits for someone to find it again. I emailed Lysander. "Did they feed you the same she resigned story?" He replied almost instantly. "They told everyone you left to start a family." I looked around my apartment. Quiet, alone, no crib in the corner, no flowers on the table, just silence and truth. I didn't feel bitterness in that moment. I didn't feel rage. I felt awake. It was a brunch I helped launch 3 years ago, one of those support local women in business things that gets just enough press to matter. Back then, I coordinated the venue, the catering, even the centerpieces. Now I was sitting alone in the back corner, a name tag that read "Guest" pinned to my jacket. Not a speaker, not a panelist, just a warm body in a cold room. When they called Seraphine up as keynote, there was a round of applause. Some people stood. I didn't. She stepped to the podium like she'd been born there. Her tone was perfect, her hair polished. She smiled that subtle, PR-tested smile and launched into her speech. "We women don't need to out-masculine men," she said. "We can lead by knowing when to let go." People nodded. A few clapped. One woman at my table actually whispered, "That's so true." I sat still, very still. I had written that line, not for a speech, certainly not for this one. I typed it into a draft email to Seraphine years ago while we were brainstorming how to transition team leads during budget cuts. I'd used it to justify my own decision to back out of a meeting so she could shine. It was about delegation, not abandonment. But here she was, using my own words to paint me as weak, as the woman who knew when to step aside. I didn't touch my coffee, just watched as the room clapped again and again, each cheer pulling me further from the center of a circle I had built. That night, my phone buzzed as I was folding laundry. Aunt Helen's name lit up the screen. Arizona, always polite, always late to the gossip. Your mom said you're traveling, she said, sounding careful. Maybe writing a book? I sat on the floor holding a damp towel. That what she told you? Helen hesitated. Well, yes. She said you wanted time away. You chose it. Of course she did. Of course that's what Mom was telling people. That I outgrew the company. That I left on my terms. She was rewriting the ending before I could finish my sentence. My chest tightened, not from the lie, but from how easily it came. My mother once told me, you don't quit things, you just outgrow them. She used to say it like it was wisdom. Now it felt like camouflage. After the call ended, I saved the voicemail transcript. Not because I needed proof, because I needed a reminder of how the story was being repackaged and sold. By morning, the social media posts from the brunch were everywhere. Photos of Seraphine smiling, shaking hands, standing in front of quotes that once lived in my notebook. Captions praised her modern vision. A few comments mentioned the healthy leadership transition. Some even called it inspiring to see sisters supporting each other. Sisters. I didn't comment. I didn't like or share. But I took screenshots. I kept receipts. One journalist even tagged me in a post, asking for a comment on the graceful pivot. I didn't reply, not yet. I opened my journal, flipped past pages with ideas scribbled in pen, and wrote a single sentence. They borrowed my vocabulary, reworded the wound, and called it empowerment. Then I underlined it, twice. I wasn't angry, not in the loud way people expect. I was clear. I printed out Seraphine's speech and started highlighting every phrase I'd written first. Every recycled metaphor, every sentence I remembered crafting in my old email drafts. Then I pulled out my backup drives and opened folders labeled Copy Internal. They were time-stamped, dated, and full of my fingerprints. The truth wasn't going to come from shouting, it was going to come from showing. I started drafting my own speech, not for a conference, not for applause, just for the record. They speak of freedom, I wrote. I will speak of facts. The blog post took shape quickly. I titled it, When Empowerment is Just Exile in Heels. They'd told a story without me, but I was still here. I dialed my mother's number the morning after the brunch. I didn't plan to yell. I didn't plan anything, really. Just wanted to hear her voice. Ask her plainly why she let my own words get used to bury me. The call didn't go through. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. Then I checked the messages, the texts, all gone, not archived, deleted. She had blocked me. Around noon, the email came in. Subject line, request for transition compliance. It wasn't from her. It was from their attorney. Cold, clinical. Addressed to Miss Crow, the same lawyer who used to eat Christmas dinner with us and bring cheap wine no one liked. Now he was asking me to sign a document relinquishing all claims to any remaining company assets. In the spirit of family unity, he wrote. I stared at it for 5 minutes before replying. If I'm just a liability, I typed back, then I'll act accordingly. Then I got to work. I opened up a fresh folder on my laptop and labeled it Voices. Inside that, I created 3 more: proof, silence, and receipts. I started dragging in files, email threads, budget drafts, voice memos from meetings, time-stamped screenshots of dashboards I built from scratch. Everything they'd tried to delete. I didn't need it to prove anything to them. I needed it for me. The sky darkened early that afternoon. Rain hit the windows hard, and the wind shook the door like it was impatient. I packed a messenger bag with a flash drive, gloves, and my old building badge. Then I grabbed a raincoat and left. I arrived at Crow Logistics just after 3. The receptionist didn't recognize me. She asked if I had an appointment. I said I was just here to pick up a few personal items. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. Clarence from HR showed up. He looked like someone walking toward a funeral they didn't want to attend. I'll walk you down, he said. He didn't say welcome back. We took the back hallway. the one I used to rush through between department meetings, juggling spreadsheets and coffees. "This way," Clarence said, stopping at a side door. My name used to be on it. Now it read, "Inventory, archive only." He opened it. Fluorescent light flickered to life, shelving units, old boxes, a dusty copier. The air smelled like mothballs and negligence. "That's everything," he mumbled. I didn't answer. I just walked in, slow. On one shelf sat a single item, a glass paperweight shaped like a globe. My dad gave it to me the day I landed our first national shipping contract. "So you remember where you're going," he said, "and where you came from." I picked it up. It was still cool to the touch. Clarence cleared his throat. "I'll see myself out," I told him. Back home, I laid everything out on the dining table like it was a puzzle I'd already solved but needed to look at again. The old decks. Voice recordings. The project launch calendar that had my name next to every major milestone for 3 years. All the slides they now used in Seraphine's keynotes. Mine, just reworded. "They use silence to erase me," I said out loud to no one. "I'll use silence to respond." I opened a file and started outlining a keynote speech. Not for them, not for the gala, for something else, something coming. Then I encrypted an email to Evanthy Gray, attached a timeline, mine, not theirs, with all the original documents. The subject line read, "The version they erased." In the body I wrote, "Would you like the one they rewrote, or the one that's true?" No greeting, no fluff. I hit send. It was late by the time I left again. I walked toward the old park where I used to sit with my dad before big meetings. There was a bench across from the coffee shop where we'd made the first deal together. I sat, took out my phone, played a voice memo I'd saved from him years ago. His voice crackled, but I knew every word. "They'll test you, kid," he said. "Make sure they regret doing it." I closed my eyes and let that sit. When I opened them, I caught my reflection in the storefront window across the street. I was still here, still standing. "I won't knock on the door anymore," I whispered. "I'll change the locks." Then I pulled out my notepad and started planning. A venue, a list of names, a date, my own reunion. I hadn't opened my dad's laptop since the week he died. It sat in the hall closet, inside a faded leather bag he used to carry to board meetings, stained with a spot of coffee and some stubborn glue from a sticker I peeled off years ago. That night, I dug it out. The battery was dead. I plugged it in, waited. I didn't know what I was hoping to find, really. A spreadsheet, an old message, a sign. What I found was an unsent draft saved in the documents folder under the name Board Structure, Do Not Delete. I clicked it open. It was dated the night before he passed. He had written to Mom. It wasn't long. Dad wasn't one to waste words. "She doesn't demand respect," he wrote. "That's why she deserves it." He told her to name me co-owner. Said if anything happened to him, the company would need someone who wasn't just smart, but steady. Someone who wouldn't turn power into performance. The email was never sent. They built this house on his silence. I was going to finish what he started. The next morning I called Lysander. He didn't pick up, but texted back in 2 minutes. "Knew you'd find it eventually? You free to talk?" We jumped on a call by noon. "I kept copies," he said. "I don't trust cloud drives anymore. I've got everything, the decks, the drafts. Even that interview clip you never approved for release, the one where you talked about leading from the back row." He paused. "You want it?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Yeah, I figured." He offered to help package it, simple, clean. Let them spin whatever they want. You don't spin, you show. That night, I opened a new project folder. Timeline, archive, testimonials. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. I didn't plan to attend the gala anymore. That was their stage. I scheduled a podcast recording with Evanthy Gray instead. We'd been exchanging emails for a few weeks. She knew the basics, but now I had receipts. "We won't bury them," she said, "but we'll unearth you." We set it for Sunday morning, the same day their tribute video would hit the airwaves. I rehearsed my statement. The silence wasn't strength, it was survival. I looked at the questions Evanthi sent over and smiled. They were good, sharp, honest. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted oxygen. I didn't call Seraphine, didn't email Mom. This wasn't about them. It never really had been. This was about what they'd tried to hide, and the fact that I was done hiding too. Friday night, I reviewed everything one last time. Timestamps, screenshots, metadata, my name removed, then restored. I called my lawyer, ran it all by him. Any of this break the NDA? I asked. Truth isn't defamation, he said. If you've got records, you're clear. I thanked him, hung up, and placed the red pen on my desk beside my old headshot. That pen had once signed away my position. Now it would sign my name onto something else. They taught me to speak quietly, I whispered. Now I'll make every word count. I scheduled the release for 9:00 a.m. Saturday came gray and still. I got dressed like I was going to the gala, black slacks, a muted blouse, simple makeup, no earrings. I didn't plan to leave the apartment. I just wanted to remember what it felt like to look ready. At 6:00, I opened the Crow Logistics live stream on my laptop. The screen flickered, then came to life with a polished intro reel. Timelines, buildings, slogans. Seraphine's voice floated over it all. I sipped my coffee slowly, hands steady. The host introduced her. Visionary leader, architect of change, woman of the year. People clapped. The camera panned the ballroom, and I recognized faces I hadn't seen in months. Some had been loyal to me once, maybe still were, or maybe they just moved on. Seraphine took the stage like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. Her hair was curled the way Mom liked it, tight, elegant, not too young. She smiled, then gestured to someone off screen. They handed her a plaque. Leadership Legacy Award. I'd built that campaign, every metric, every email, every line of copy, and they handed it to her like she'd dreamt it up over tea. Then they called up Grayson, my former intern. He gave a short, heartfelt thank you speech about the marketing strategy that saved the brand during the pandemic. He didn't say my name, not once. I didn't blink. I just stared at the screen and held my coffee like it was armor. They'd planned this rewrite with meticulous cruelty. Then Mom took the microphone. She didn't look at the camera. She didn't need to. She thanked the crowd, the donors, the team, and then she said it. Some women, she began, are too ambitious for their own good. Sometimes the best legacy is to step aside gracefully. The room applauded. People nodded. But outside that ballroom, the internet caught fire. Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn. The headlines came fast. Hashtag graceful exit started trending until it got replaced by something sharper. Hashtag generational gaslight. She said, "What?" One journalist tweeted. "Is this what women's leadership looks like in 2025? Asked another. I took screenshots, every headline, every thread, every time someone said, "Perry deserves better." I didn't comment. I didn't like anything. I didn't respond to the 10 messages that came from reporters asking for my side. Not yet. Instead, I turned to my laptop and opened the draft I'd been sitting on for weeks. My statement. My version. The one Evanthi and I had fine-tuned down to the breath. I read it out loud once, slowly. Not as a victim, not as a woman trying to reclaim a stage, but as someone who had stood in the fire and finally decided to walk out. Then I opened my voice memo app and deleted the draft from last year, the one where I said I might forgive my mother if it meant keeping the peace. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the absence of control. I scheduled my post to go live at 7:00 a.m. Title, The Version They Erased. At 8:43 p.m., the voicemail came in. Seraphine. I didn't pick up. She left a message. "Let's not blow this up further. You've always been so strong, Perry. That's why we did it. You could handle it." I closed the app, walked across the room, opened the document archive, scrolled to the email from Dad, the one he never sent but left behind. She doesn't demand respect. That's why she deserves it. I pulled the shadow box frame from the closet, placed the red pen inside it, next to a printed copy of that email, propped it up on the bookshelf beside my work desk. They taught me not to need a spotlight, so I built my own stage. I woke up to vibration, phone, tablet, laptop, all humming with notifications before the sun had even broken the blinds. My first thought was something had gone wrong, a breach, a mistake, a fire. Then I saw it. The post had gone live. So had the podcast. Avanti's voice cut through every platform: Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. My words, my version, not polished, not bitter, just true. This is not revenge. This is remembrance. That's what I wrote in the first paragraph, and people felt it. Thousands of comments, thousands more reposts, some angry, some broken, some saying, "This was my family too." Others just typed, "Finally." I didn't cry. It wasn't that kind of day. It was a clean kind of morning, the kind where things shift into place without needing to be pushed. News outlets started picking it up by noon. Headlines rolled in. She was never meant to be silent. What one woman's truth taught an entire industry. And I just kept scrolling. Quiet. My coffee went cold. I didn't warm it back up. I didn't need to. By late afternoon, Seraphine called. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "Perry," she said, her voice too calm. "I think we can still fix this. Maybe you could come back. Not officially. Just consult?" She paused. I didn't fill the silence for her. Then came the truth of it. "Do you remember the analytics software password? We're locked out of the reporting system." I almost laughed. Almost. "I'm not your backup plan, Seraphine," I said. Click. I didn't hang up out of spite. I hung up because the line had gone dead long before the phone ever rang. "You erased me to build your future," I whispered. "I won't rebuild it for you." Later that night, I framed the red pen, the one they used to sign me out. I placed it next to my father's office photo, the one where he's leaning over a table, marker in hand, and I'm beside him, frowning into the paperwork. It looked like nothing to anyone else. To me, it was an altar, not to grief, but to survival. I watched the gala video one more time, not because I missed anything, but to confirm how little I needed it. Messages started trickling in. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years wrote, "I didn't know. I'm sorry." A former coworker, "I should have said something." I answered with grace. Some stories don't need apologies, just an ending. Monday morning, I walked past the old building. No one looked twice. I didn't slow down. Later that week, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership event. They didn't ask me to talk about resilience. They asked me to talk about truth. In that room, filled with women who had learned the hard way how quiet can hurt, I stood at the mic and said, "Sometimes you don't need the apology. You just need the silence to end." The applause came like a warm tide, not roaring, not forced, just full. When I got home, I poured coffee, opened a new document, and typed the first line of the book I had promised myself for too long. Title: The Stage They Forgot to Build for Me.